Hello everyone and welcome to another N.E.S.T reading session. Today our book is called Never Lonely Again and this is what it looks like. Oh sorry, that's a bit bad. And you should have access to it on the Google Drive or hopefully one of us will have sent it to you. If not, just let us know and we can get that book to you. So it's just going to be a bit of the same as what we usually do. So I'll read through the book, go through any really difficult words, phrases, and make sure you understand the book by asking some questions at the end to do with the story. So I'll get started. So we'll start. I think this is quite a nice little kind of like a setting, like not a setting, but kind of like a prologue at the beginning. So it's this page here, and it's Waldo Presents. So it has a dog in the top left corner, and this is a message from Waldo the dog. Let me tell you a little secret. When I was about your age, I often felt very lonely. Sometimes I had no friends to play with, and I thought that nobody cared how I felt. I still remember that very well. Most grown-ups have forgotten how it feels to be lonely, because they always seem to be so busy. Chestnut, the squirrel in our story, also felt lonely, but one day something happened that opened his eyes. Your friend, Waldo. So that's just a nice little way to kind of get you in the mood of the book and kind of introduces you to the book as well. So introduces us already to Chestnut the squirrel, who will be the main character in this book. And it's basically just saying that, you know, a lot of people can be very lonely, and I think that's very important, especially during these difficult times with lockdown and things. So this is just to lift your spirits if you're feeling a bit sad with everything going on. So let's continue on this page here. So it's got a picture of a squirrel in a bed. Okay. One morning, Chestnut stayed in bed longer than usual. He didn't feel like getting up. There was nothing for him to do, and worst of all, he had no friends to play with. I might as well keep on sleeping, he thought to himself, when suddenly his whole house began to move and shake. An earthquake, Chestnut thought, and was wide awake right away. So just because there aren't any chapters in this book, I'll take it page by page and just see if there's any difficult words in each page, just because there aren't any distinct chapters, because it's quite a short story. So, a squirrel. You'll see further on in the pictures the what a squirrel looks like, or how the author interprets the squirrels to look like in this book. But it's basically just a small animal. You probably see them excuse me, eating chestnuts, eating nuts, running up and down trees. In the UK, we mainly just have red and grey squirrels. So that's like two different types. But yeah, they live in the trees, they eat nuts, that kind of thing. And that is what chestnut is in this story. And the other word that I picked up on was earthquake. So just in case you're unsure about this, a lot of you might already know. So it's when the surface of the earth shakes, so it like you can feel the ground and everything around you shaking. But they can be so small that you don't feel anything, you don't notice them, or they can be so big that they just devastate everything and it just causes absolute destruction to people, places, the environment, buildings. It literally just destroys everything, and that's because of this violent shaking of the earth's surface. And that's what Chestnut here thought that the movement and the shaking of his house was. He thought it was an earthquake. Move on to the next page. Got a nice picture there. The pictures in this book are lovely, aren't they? They really help you with the story, I think. But it was no earthquake. It was only Morris, the otter, who was playing with a branch of Chestnut's tree. So, like I said, Chestnut is a squirrel. He lives in the trees. Squirrels live in trees. So an otter is an animal that lives in the water, and if you see the picture there, you can see that this is the otter that they have portrayed in the book. It's like a mammal that lives in the water. You might have seen some of them in zoos, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's an otter, and in the one in this story is called Morris. So Morris the otter, and Chestnut the squirrel. Next page, and the picture on this page is the otter's bottom. "Are you crazy?" Chestnut said furiously, "making such a rattle this early in the day?" I'll move on to the next bit as well because it's quite small. So this is now the picture with the otter with the frog on his head. "What's the matter?" replied Morris. "Why can't you come out and play?" "Faugh!" said Chestnut, who didn't want Morris to know that he had no friends to play with. So just going back to the page we've just read, the page that we just read with this one here. The word furiously, so Chestnut asked furiously, that is, Chestnut is really angry, he's enraged, he's really, really annoyed because of the movement that Morris has caused to Chestnut's tree. He thought it was an earthquake because he was moving the tree so much. So he's really annoyed by that. I think he might have been annoyed by the initial fear that it was an earthquake. Really irritated by Morris. And then we have making such a rattle this early in the day. In this context, you might not know that rattle is just noise. So he's making a lot of noise, he's making a lot of movement. So we move on to the next page, which looks like this. "I think I know what your problem is," said Morris as he dried his coat. "You are just bored with your own company. That happens to all of us at times. Have you ever wondered why we otters are always so happy?" continued Morris. "It's because every new day we have to make one new friend." "Then you must have hundreds of friends," Chestnut said sceptically. "Or maybe even more than that," said Morris. "Come along, I'll show you some of my pals." Okay, so that was quite a paragraph. So we'll do the words on here that are quite tricky. So company. So this is when you're if you have company, that means that you are in the presence of other people. So if you're with your friends, if you're with your family, you have company, you have people with you. But in this context, it's that Morris is saying that Chestnut is bored with his own company. So that means that the only company he has is himself. So he has no one else around him. He only has himself to be with, which is really sad. But that's what it means in this case. So he's just being by himself. And then it says, "Then you must have hundreds of friends," Chestnut said skeptically. So skeptically means that he's not convinced. He's quite doubtful. So Chestnut is asking about Morris having hundreds of friends. He's probably thinking, I doubt you have hundreds of friends. So he's saying it, but he's like, really? I don't think so. So he's a bit doubtful that he has that many friends. And the very last word on this page is pals. That's just another word for friends. So it says, I'll show you some of my pals. So I'll show you some of my friends. That's all it means. So now we're on to the next page. Chestnut didn't believe Morris for a moment, but he was curious enough to go along with him. So curious. This is like eager to know or learn something. So in this case, Chestnut is really eager and really he's really wanting to know these hundreds of friends that Morris is claiming he has. He's wanting to see them all. He's wanting to make sure it's true. Because obviously before he was skeptical, so now he's curious. He's thinking, I wonder if he does have hundreds of friends, kind of thing. So that's that. So that's why he's so curious. Oh, and this is a nice picture, isn't it? So now I'll just show you the double page spread because the picture's so nice. Right, that's lovely. So you've got Morris there cuddling all the flowers, and then you have Chestnut in the background, kind of looking confused, maybe why he's cuddling all the flowers. So, look here, these are some of my friends, said Morris, and he jumped into the middle of a patch of flowers. But these are just dumb flowers, cried Chestnut. They're not friends. Why not? Aren't they lovely with their nice smell? Look at them. They all seem to smile at us. Someone who smiles at me is my friend, insisted Morris. So here, there's one word that I picked up on that's quite tricky, and that's insisted. That's towards the end of that page there. So, someone who smiles at me is my friend, insisted Morris. So insisted means that he's demanding this forcefully. So he's absolutely saying categorically 100% that someone who smiles at me is my friend. He's certain on it. He's not accepting any other suggestions. He's not accepting any refusal. He's saying, this is how it is. This is how it's not, I'm not going to change my mind. He's insisting that if these flowers that are smiling at him are his friend. Okay, now next page. Oh, I just love these pictures. They're so lovely. Now let's try to catch a butterfly, Morris said. They can be very tricky friends. Chestnut still thought Morris was silly, but he liked catching butterflies. So here, a butterfly, if you can see here, that is a butterfly. So the orange thing in between Morris and Chestnut is a butterfly, and they're a large insect with wings, and they're brightly coloured. They feed on flowers and things. That is a butterfly. You probably see them a lot around spring, summertime. They're very pretty. They're lovely, lovely insects, and that's what they are doing here. They're trying to catch them, which isn't very nice if you just think of that. But then if we move on to the next page, you'll see that it's actually okay. But let's just stick to this page for a minute. So tricky. So Morris says that they can be tricky friends. And tricky means difficult. So it means that the task is awkward. It requires care and skill. So the butterflies here are being difficult friends. They're not very easy to be friends with. They are awkward, kind of. So maybe what they're insinuating here, maybe what they're suggesting is that they just keep flying away. Maybe they don't want to stay caught. So I think that's maybe what Morris means. So it just means, so tricky, it means difficult, the task is awkward, and it requires care and skill. So next page. Whenever Morris caught a butterfly, he immediately set it free again. We can't keep a friend locked up, he said, laughing. So this is what I was saying. Like if you just read that previous page and think, well, why the catching butterflies? It's okay because he just let them go straight away. So that's quite nice. So he's saying that he doesn't want to keep his friends locked up in his hands. So if you catch a butterfly, you don't want to keep it there because it doesn't belong there. So you just set it free. That's what Morris is doing. But we as humans shouldn't catch butterflies. So a word here, immediately. That means straight away. So he caught the butterfly and straight away he set it free. No messing, no delays, just caught it, set it free straight away. Just so it, what like he says, just so it didn't keep getting locked up. Because the butterfly is his friend. He doesn't want to make it sad. Okay, so now we're on to the part with the rocks. So if you're looking at the pictures, the picture here is the rock where Morris and Chestnut are walking along rocks. A lovely picture again. Then Morris pointed to a row of rocks leading across the river. These friends are more fun than a bridge. Chestnut wasn't quite sure. Now, next page. Chestnut jumped from stone to stone. He had nearly made it to the other side of the river when he slipped and fell into the water. I don't think there are any tricky words there. Yeah. So next page. So just to keep you on track, we're looking at this page here with this picture. As he climbed to the shore with his coat and tail dripping, Chestnut said angrily, "I guess the water is also one of your friends." "Of course," Morris said with a laugh. "No reason to be upset. Water can be fun. Come, watch me." I think every word on there is also quite straightforward. Or maybe dripping maybe. So in this case, Chestnut is very, very wet. He's just fallen in the water. So, and obviously he has fur, so he's going to be so wet that it's just dripping. The water is just dripping on the floor from his coat, his fur, his tail. So it's fallen. So dripping. It kind of, because it's so wet, the fur can't hold any more water, so it's having to fall on the floor because it physically can't hold any more water. So that's kind of what it means here by dripping. Okay, next page. "I love water," said Morris. "It cools and tickles me all over." So tickle. So tickle here, it means kind of like you lightly touch the body in a way that causes laughter, discomfort, maybe itching. So kind of like this. So if you tickle someone like that, that's kind of what it means. So ticklish places might be under the arms, the tummy, the feet, maybe the neck. That's kind of what we mean by tickling. So so Morris here is saying that the water is kind of tickling him everywhere, so it's kind of causing this feeling of like discomfort almost, itchy. He might be laughing because it's tickling. So I hope I've explained that well enough. It's a difficult word to explain, but it's just kind of it's kind of like when you do that and tickle someone. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the arm, but that's kind of what it means here. Next page. Now Chestnut had to laugh. He felt a little silly for having been so clumsy. After Morris finished his shower, both of them were dripping wet. They shook off some of the water, and then Morris ran up the hill and opened his arms wide. "Now let my friend the wind dry our coats." And in no time they were dry again. So the word here, it's at the second line down, clumsy. So Chestnut had to laugh. He felt silly for having been so clumsy. So that means he was kind of awkward with his movements. He didn't really have any skill with when he was climbing across the rocks. The movement was difficult when he was. that's kind of what we mean here. It was that his movements were so awkward, so difficult when he was moving across the rocks. But clumsy doesn't necessarily have to be used in that context. It can be if you keep dropping things, if you keep tripping over. You can be clumsy with your words, that kind of thing. So it's basically just almost lacking in skill, lacking in finesse. It's difficult to do, so he found it really difficult to move across them rocks with Morris, whereas Morris didn't seem to find that difficult at all. Okay, next is another double page spread with another lovely photo, not photo but drawing. So we're here. I think these pictures are really lovely. Oh, the cows on the right hand side and the line on the grass. Okay. "Let's lie down in the sun over there," said Morris. The warm sunshine felt good on their bellies. "I guess the sun is also a good friend to have," thought Chestnut, but he didn't say anything to Morris. "I'm getting hungry," Morris said, after a while. This time it was Chestnut who said, "Come with me. I know someone who'll give us something to eat." "You mean a friend?" "You bet," laughed Chestnut, and off they ran. So, bellies. So here it says, the warm sunshine felt good on their bellies. Belly is just tummy, so it's this. It's just that because if you look at the photo, they are lying on their backs. So this is allowing the sun to warm their tummies. Tummies, stomachs, bellies, it all means the same thing, really. I think that's it on that page. Although here, at the very end of this page, it says, "You bet," laughed Chestnut, and off they ran. So "you bet" kind of means of course, like yes, of course. So Morris is saying, "You mean a friend?" And Chestnut is going, "Yes, of course. Of course, this we don't know what it is yet, but this thing is my friend." So that's just a kind of another way of saying yes. I know it's an odd one. It's an odd way to say it, but in this context, I think it's important for you to know, and that's what it means. Okay, so now we're on the page with the big apple tree. It would be easier if this book had numbers on the pages so I could explain the numbers, but it's okay. They have nice pictures. So, Chestnut showed Morris an apple tree full of ripe red apples. So ripe means ready to eat. So with fruit and things, it does take them quite a while to be ready to eat. So if you eat an apple or an orange or a banana, anything like that that isn't ripe, it's not going to taste very nice. Because it's not going to be very sweet. It's going to be quite sour. It's going to be it's just not going to taste very nice because it hasn't fully gotten to that stage where it's ready to eat. So these apples are ripe because they've been given long enough to grow to be ready to eat. So that means when they eat the apples, it's going to be quite sweet. They're going to taste very nice. And that's what you want out of fruit, isn't it? "I like your friend," said Morris. "And so do I," replied Chestnut. So that's all pretty straightforward there, I think. Okay, so this is another double page spread here. We're looking at them sitting on a branch, looking at the clouds. And if you look at all the clouds, they're like different shapes of animals if you look closely. So I can see a duck, I can see a pig, I can see a bird, I can see a bunny, sheep. So if you look at it all, if you look at all the clouds, you can see that they're different shapes of animals, alluding to the fact that you can sometimes see shapes in the clouds if you look hard enough. Okay. Then they watched the different clouds going by. The sun was getting low and it was time for them to return home. Next page. Have you already made your new friend for the day? Chestnut asked shyly. No, I haven't, replied Morris. I forgot all about it. We've just been too busy. Then he smiled and added, But how about you? Would you like to be my new friend? Chestnut liked that idea very much. As they paddled home together, he held tight to Morris. So, shyly. So, shyly. Have you already made your new friend for the day? Chestnut asked shyly. So this means that he's nervous to ask. He's quite timid, maybe quiet. So he's nervous to ask this question. He's nervous to ask if he's made a new friend. Maybe it's because he hopes it could be him. Who knows? But he's quite reserved. He's finding it difficult to ask because he's quite shy. And then towards the end of this page, we have the word paddled. So they paddled home together. And that means that they're moving through the water. In this case, if you look at the picture, they are on a log, getting a ride with a frog, it would seem. And they are using a stick to paddle through. So as you can see on the photo, on the picture there, they'll be sitting on the log and the stick will be using to paddle to wade their way through the water to move forward. So if you swim, you need something to kind of push you forward. So when you're swimming, you're using your hands to paddle. Or if you've seen maybe a canoe or a kayak, they have like sticks either side and you paddle through. This is kind of the same idea. So Chestnut and Morris are using the log as the boat and the stick as the paddle to get home together. So that's kind of what it means. So paddled is just that they are moving through the water. They're moving through the water in a boat log with a paddle stick. Then the two friends said good night to each other. I'll see you in the morning, said Morris. I still want you to meet my friends, the bears, the rabbits, and the raccoons. And with that, he disappeared into the water. So, raccoons. Raccoons are. They're not a common animal that we'd see, really. So, they are kind of like a black and white mammal. They kind of have like a foxy face. And like a ringtail, so like a black and white ringtail, so black, white, black, white, black, white, ringed around the tail. And that's a raccoon. Unfortunately, there's no I'll just check. I don't think there's a picture of the raccoon here. No, there isn't. That would be useful. But so yeah, it's just kind of like a black and white animal. If you could Google a photo while you're at home, that would be great, and then it could kind of give you an understanding of what a raccoon is. But bears and rabbits and raccoons. That's who Morris is saying are his friends that he wants to introduce Chestnut to, which is lovely. And then we have the word near the very end here, disappeared, and that means that you can no longer see them. So if something disappears, you can't see it anymore. So Chestnut will no longer be able to see Morris because he has gone into the water. And if you remember me saying about otters, Morris is an otter. Otters kind of live in water, so he's probably just going home. But yeah, disappeared. You can no longer see something. Last page now. That night, Chestnut went to bed early. He set his alarm clock to make sure he wouldn't oversleep the next morning. After all, he couldn't disappoint all the friends who would be waiting for him. Disappoint kind of means let down, so he doesn't want to let down all the friends who'll be waiting for him. He doesn't want them to be waiting Chestnut only for him to not turn up because that would disappoint them. So that's what he's saying. He's saying he doesn't want to let them down. And that's the end of the book there. I think that's a really, really nice book, actually. I think it's a really nice book. A lot of nice pictures. Yeah. I hope I've made that very clear. I hope I've managed to explain the difficult words, and I hope I've made the story understandable. So what I'm going to do is just ask you, I've got 4 questions lined up just to check your understanding of the book, just to ensure that you kind of follow it through. So the first question I have here is, what did Chestnut think it was that woke him up suddenly? So this is near the beginning. What did Chestnut think it was that woke him up suddenly? And I'll give you a minute or so to look for the answer. I'll find the page to help you. It's the page with Chestnut lying down in bed at the beginning. I'll just give you a few more seconds to try and find the answer to that one. What did Chestnut think it was that woke him up suddenly? A few more seconds. Okay, so it was an earthquake. So if you see here at the beginning, suddenly his whole house began to move and shake. An earthquake, Chestnut thought, and was awake, and was wide awake straight away. Sorry, right away. He was wide awake right away. So that's what the answer to this question is. Chestnut thought that it was an earthquake that was waking him up suddenly in the morning. And as we know, it wasn't. It was Morris the otter. So well done if you got that one. Okay, so this one requires you to look through the book, so I'll give you a bit longer on this one. What are Morris's friends? I didn't say who because some of them are objects. So what or who are Morris's friends? I'm going to give you a bit longer on this because they are dotted around the book. So just take your time. What or who are Morris's friends? This is a tricky question. Just try your best. If you don't get them all, you know, that's totally fine. Just try your best. Try and think of as many as you can. Try and find as many as you can. So what or who are Morris's friends? Bit longer on this one because it's a tricky one. Like I say, it's kind of the answers are kind of dotted around the book. They're not all on one particular page. But I suppose I could direct you to the first answer, which is on this page here. Again, you don't have numbers, so I'm just going to have to show you. That's what the first answer is, just to give you a kind of a starting point. Give you a bit longer just because this is a tricky, long-winded question. A little bit longer. Okay, so maybe I can start giving you the answer. I mean, if you haven't found it, you can pause the video and give yourself a bit more time. So, the first answer, flowers. If the page that I just showed you, Chestnut says they are just dumb flowers. They're not friends. And Morris says, why not? Aren't they lovely with their nice smell? Look at them. They all seem to smile at us. Someone who smiles at me is my friend. So flowers is one. Now butterflies. So the next page, Morris says that butterflies can be tricky friends. So butterflies here are friends. Rocks. The next answer is the rocks. So Morris's third friend are the rocks. So if you see here, these friends are more fun than the bridge, and the picture shows them climbing across the rocks. And then the water. So this is the fourth friend. If we look on this page here, Chestnut said angrily, I guess the water is also one of your friends. Of course, Morris said with a laugh. So water. So far we have flowers, butterfly, rocks, water. Then we move on to sorry, I'm just trying to find the next one. Just try and find the page. The sun. Sorry, no, the wind. The wind. So we're on this page now. So I didn't mean to say the sun, I meant to say the wind. Now let my friend the wind dry our coats. And in no time they were dry again. So we've got flowers, butterfly, rocks, water, wind. That's 5 of Morris's friends so far. He has a lot of friends. And then I almost put apple tree, but that's actually Chestnut's friend. So Chestnut introduces Morris to the apple tree. So it's not initially Morris's friend, but it's Chestnut's friend. But if you put apple tree, that's still great because he's probably friends with the apple tree after Chestnut introduces them. And then when we get to the end, he says that he has friends, the bears, the rabbits, and the raccoons. So, in addition to all the ones I've just said, we have the bears, the rabbits, and the raccoons. So that was a really long question. I'm sorry about that. Please see if you can find them in the book just to help you make sense of it. So I'll try and run through them again. Flowers, butterflies, rocks, water, wind, bears, rabbits, raccoons. So I think that's 8 that I've picked up on. If you can find another one, that would be great. You could say apple tree once they've been introduced by Chestnut. So that's 8 or 9, depending if you included apple tree. Well done if you found any more. That's a tricky that's a tricky question and a really long one, so I'm sorry about that. This is an easy one. This question's a bit easier. How did Chestnut and Morris dry their wet coats? How did Chestnut and Morris dry their wet coats? And I'll give you a couple of seconds and then I will show you the page it's on, just to help. So, how did Chestnut and Morris dry their wet coats? How did they dry their wet fur? Because their coats is just their fur. So this is the page it's on. Bit longer on that one. Okay, so they stood on a hill, they opened their arms wide and they let the wind dry them. So they were stood on the hill and the wind just kind of dried off their coats. So that is how Chestnut and Morris dried their wet coats. They stood on a hill, opened their arms wide and let the wind dry them. Then finally we'll get to the last page and ask a question. So this is on the very last page. What did Chestnut do to ensure he didn't oversleep? What did Chestnut do to ensure he did not oversleep? This is on the last page. What did Chestnut do to ensure he didn't oversleep? So the answer to this is that he set an alarm clock. So it says that night Chestnut went to bed early. He set his alarm clock to make sure he didn't oversleep. To make sure he wouldn't oversleep the next morning. So he set an alarm clock. That is the answer to that. What did Chestnut do to ensure he didn't oversleep? He set an alarm clock. And that's just that page there. That's the end of the book. That's the end of the terminology. That's the end of the questions. That means it's the end of today's session. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure. I really love that book, if you couldn't already tell. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Please just let us know if you need the book, and I hope you're all staying safe, staying home, and I'm really happy that you're still coming to the reading sessions. I hope you're finding them useful. So please join us again next week. Stay safe, stay home, and take care. Thank you all so much. Bye.